So I sent a text to the BuzzBeat group earlier saying, ignoring contracts, who is the worst player you would trade Knueppel for straight up now? And no, I don't want to trade Knueppel, but I just thought it was like a interesting thought exercise. And what it does is it kind of gets you thinking about like what you think his ceiling is and how good you think Con is relative to the league. So I sent that question. I asked you to bring. I've got two names. I think is where I landed. But I will let, as I asked the question, I will let you go first. What are some of the names that kind of you started batting around as like the Mendoza line of, yeah, I think I'd trade Con for him?
Well, to me, ignoring, the contracts wasn't the hard part for me. It was like the age and like the developmental timeline. So I'm not sure how much you considered that with this
I
exercise.
didn't, I didn't do it for any like older guys. That was one of the things. Like, if I'm trading Con, you want to get someone in who isn't going to be declining in a year's time. You want to have someone who is still on their prime or on an upwards trajectory. So I took it into account. I did.
Okay. Yeah, that was the harder part for me because obviously we're talking about talent here, but we're also talking about the Hornets and where they are. And, with Khan's age and where the Hornets are developmentally, I don't know why this name keeps popping up, but like Anthony Davis keeps being mocked to the Hornets. I would not trade Knueppel for Anthony Davis. Like
Makes no
that whole
sense.
situation makes little sense for Charlotte to do that unless it was part of like a bigger package and maybe somebody else was coming. And then you've got players like Devin Booker, Jaylen Brown. They've been in the league for like 10 years, so they're getting up there in terms of their age, although Jaylen Brown's doing awesome recently, the way that he's been able to kind of attack the paint and drive in the last 5, 6, 7 games recently with Boston kind of upping their way in the Eastern standings. So those guys, like, they're interesting names, but just because of like the age and experience thing, I just wouldn't do that either. And you said to look at like the list of the Ringer, and everyone has different rankings, and the Ringer doesn't account for like where teams are in their developmental stage. I'm kind of bailing out on this question. I'm going to pass it back to you. But like just looking at some of the names, Jalen Williams for the Thunder, that's one that I debated a lot. And I love Williams. I love his defense ability. I love the way that he's able to attack and get downhill. I love his playmaking ability. You got to give the nod to Khan for the 3-point shooting. But I do think that's a name that I would consider trading Khan for is Jalen Williams. I did not like scroll like too far down. But yeah, I'm kind of bailing on this question, but that's like the first name that popped up on that 100 list that I'm like, okay, Jalen Williams. I think I might trade Jalen for Khan.
I have two names down, and Jalen Williams is one of those names.
Okay.
And the way I looked at it is like, if there's a clear number one offensive option you can build your team around, you're probably trading Con for that. Because I don't think either of us ever think Con will be as unlikely to reach that level. But what Con is, I think, could be is an extremely high level, Robin to a Batman, because he's just so malleable, fits anywhere, so complementary and smart, two-way player. So you start looking at, well, who are some of the other great Robins in the league? And I think Jalen Williams is one, right? Defense, playmaking, scoring. He's and potentially has maybe some number one upside if he wasn't playing next to the league's MVP and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I think Jalen Williams is a perfect name for this. I'd be interested to hear from others, maybe in the comments or on X or whatever, like, would you do Jalen Williams for Con right now? Or if not, like, is there someone else that you come to? Jalen Williams is ranked 17th on the Ringer's top 100, by the way. So that kind of gives you some idea of the level. The other name I came up with, and he's right next to Jalen Williams in the Ringer's top 100 at 16, is Evan Mobley. Completely different type of player, but like all defense. You can probably build a defense around Evan Mobley. Again, a great number two supporting option, has shown some offensive upside. That is kind of like another guy, completely different style, but like a great number two, in a different way. So those are the two guys that I started like debating and thinking about in depth, and I didn't go any deeper than that. But just an interesting thought exercise. Jalen Williams, Evan Mobley, Knueppel. Would you trade them straight up for either one of those? Let us know in the comments on our Substack or on X. If you do it, it's interesting. I'm not saying I would. They're just ones, like you said. You start debating in your head. You can look at it depending how you think about it. You can see it in different ways.